I recently decided to try out online dating, and I found myself in a situation where I had to ghost a couple of guys. This experience made me much more empathetic towards recruiters who sometimes have to do the same to job applicants. Most of us have experienced being ghosted in the dating world. Even if you haven't, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who has. It's frustrating, right? Well, it's not too different from what happens when candidates get ghosted by recruiters. There are various reasons why recruiters might ghost a candidate. One common one, though, is that they found a candidate who is a better match for the role and it's uncomfortable for them to say no, so they just keep silent. Just like in dating, a good impression matters. For UX designers, an effectively crafted and organized case study can make the difference between grabbing the attention of the hiring manager versus being ignored. Writing a case study sometimes can be a challenge even for experienced designers. Guess what? You don't have to worry because I'll guide you through the process of creating a compelling case study for your portfolio, even if you've never done it before. Currently, the demand for UX designers is soaring. However, a lot of companies are looking to hire candidates with prior experience. This means that there is fiercer competition for entry-level roles. I guess the question on your mind right now is, how do I stand out? For a second, let's switch back to my dating experience. After checking out a bunch of dating sites, I came up with a system to help me find good matches. If the photos caught my eyes, I'll take a closer look and only respond to messages if they seemed cool. However, if the photos look fishy and their story doesn't seem to be lining up, there was this one guy who had a cute profile photo, and I looked through his other photos and I realized that the first one he had put was from years ago. Needless to say, I never responded to his message. Just as a well-crafted dating profile can catch someone's eyes, a compelling UX case study can captivate a potential employer. It's your chance to showcase your skills and demonstrate how you can approach and solve UX problems. It's like giving them a peek into how you fit into their team. Now, here's a critical point. Recruiters often have limited time to review your portfolio. They are looking for a specific information in the case studies that align with the role they are hiring for. That's why the structure of your case study matters. It's like ensuring your dating profile highlights your best qualities. Also, knowing the right level of detail to include when crafting a case study demonstrates your skills as a UX designer because it shows how well you understand what information needs to be surfaced to your audience first. Remember, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. What I'll share is a valuable framework that will save you time and ensure you cover all the essentials to create a compelling case study. So if you're ready to make your portfolio as irresistible as a dating profile, stick around. On the high level, we can break down the structure of a case study into introduction, process, results and impact, and conclusion. The introduction sets the scene and answers the question, what problem are we trying to solve and why is it important? Under the introduction, you should have an overview, your role and responsibilities, the stakeholders, and the problem statement. The overview gives a sneak peek into the business profile, its size, the industry, its competitive landscape, and any other relevant contextual information. It's also good practice to state the roles and responsibilities you had throughout the project to showcase this skill set to the reviewer. As a UX designer, you'll work with a cross-functional team in your day-to-day. So it is always a great idea to mention partners and stakeholders whom you worked with to showcase these invaluable skills. And the last portion of this section is the problem. Every case study should begin with a problem that needs to be solved, and a good case study highlights what the problem is and who it affects, so whether it's the user or the business. I always recommend that the overview should be clear and concise, and it's best kept to 2 short paragraphs, 3 at most. And then for the subsections, aside overview, you can make it 2 or 3 sentences each, so not too long, so it doesn't deter the reader from continuing. Now we're going to go into the process. This section answers the question, how did we go about solving this problem and why was it the best approach? So you're going to have other subsections like user research, scope and constraints, design goals, solution and implementation, as well as testing and iteration. User research should provide details of the method used to gather insights. So whether it was surveys, user interview, or data analysis. You also want to present your key findings as relates to user behavior and their preferences. It is also important to highlight the scope and the constraints that you identified for this project. And the next thing you want to talk about would be the design goal. So you want to clearly define what success looks like for the project. And then after that, you move to the solution and the implementation. This is where you will typically see designers talk about their design process. Which design method did you opt for, and why was that the best approach? You also want to outline the strategies, features, or changes that you have proposed to address the problems you have identified. You want to provide mock-ups, wireframes, or prototypes to illustrate the proposed changes. Testing and iteration is an important aspect of the design process, which is why you want to identify what method you use to test your product and why this method was the best approach. You want to explain how the proposed solution was tested. For example, did you do usability testing or A/B testing? Then you want to document any iterations you made based on user feedback. In terms of the length of the subsections, I'll recommend 2 or 3 sentences each. A very important section that I see a lot of UI/UX designers who are just beginning out in the field leave out from their UX design case study is the result and impact section. So in this section, we present the outcomes of the solution and how it helped the business or the user overcome the challenges which we identified in the goals and objectives. The results section should describe the results of your solution, including any metrics or data that demonstrates its effectiveness. For example, you can say that it increased user engagement by so percent or increased retention rates. It's advisable not to leave your case study without having a conclusion. The conclusion tells us what you learned from the project and what the next steps are. So the conclusion should summarize the key points of the case study and provide any final thoughts or recommendations. You also want to use the conclusion section to discuss the potential for future enhancement or follow-up projects. So the idea is you understand that your project isn't perfect, and due to the constraints you have identified earlier in your project, this would be a first step in a series of other steps. My recommendation for the conclusion is to keep it as short as possible. So depending on what you're including, you can keep it as short as 2 or 3 sentences or as long as 2 paragraphs. Crafting a compelling UX case study is much like creating an enticing dating profile. It's about making that unforgettable first impression, capturing the viewer's attention, and leaving them eager to learn more.